The plight of thousands of Gurugram flat buyers whose lives are at risk by living in dilapidated and unsafe buildings. The visuals on your screens are the death traps of Gurugram. In fact, it was in February that a building collapsed in Gurugram. Since then, we found out that there are dozens of such buildings in the area that are completely in a dilapidated condition, that are completely crumbling. And what's even more shocking is that these are not old buildings, rather new residential buildings. Mayank is going to join us to help us understand what it is that he has in fact uncovered. But first, Mayank, I want to take a look at the ground report that you filed and also hear out some of the residents. Listen in.
Buying a home can be stuff of dream for many individuals, and especially in the area of Delhi NCR, when they have to put their life savings into it and they dream of owning a house in this area. But for the residents of NBCC Greenview Society in Gurugram, their dreams started to turn into nightmare as soon as they shifted in this society and in these buildings behind me. They started to see the cracks in the building, and so much so the crisis deepened that even the TMT bars is starting to appear, and their dreams of owning a house is starting to come up like a nightmare in front of their eyes every day. They had to go through a lot of problems, and they are now complaining lack of help from both the administration and also the builder. They complained a lot, as they are saying now, to the district administration and also to various ministry of the government, but their complaints were left unheard. What was turning out to be a dream come true for them, turning out to be a nightmare. What should also be highlighted is that owning house in these area is some sort of troubling, as they put hefty amount of money and their life savings into it. There are many high-rise building in the National Capital Region, and the bad structure and the bad quality of homes in this society will raise question marks about the health and status of those buildings as well.
This is a poor quality home means because of the contractor in collision with NBCC officials. They have done it, they have not done the supervision of while the construction was going on. And I am a retired government employee, government servant. I paid 1 crore rupees plus CD plus 25 lakhs on interiors.
In 2018.
Yes, and
2011 onwards basically.
Okay, so you people had to pay all these amounts.
So you asked us a question, where do we lie right now? We lie at a no man's land. NBCC is not taking the ownership. DC has given an order to evacuate. But what after that? Are they paying us? Are they giving us refund? Can we go and buy a flat? No, there has been no confirmation to that. We want a written confirmation that they will pay us the amount what my father said, 1 crore plus CD plus we done a 25 lakhs of interior. There is a mental agony which we have, right?
So they are also saying that they are giving you an alternative accommodation.
They
So
are
not giving us alternate accommodation.
Contemplating.
So
the
it's
word is used is contemplating. Contemplating means they are not giving us assurance whether they will pay us or not. The unfortunate thing, unsatisfactory order of DC is that we have to evacuate from this place from within 15 days, right. Whereas he has given NBCC 1 month for consideration of refund.
So you are blaming that the district administration is playing on the part of the NBCC and not towards your side.
See, NBCC officials are liars basically. 2 months back they have given an interview. In an interview, CMD has told that they are going to refund the money, but no actions. They are giving wrong information to the media.
Well, extremely frustrated voices there. But Mayank, let me straight come to you here. We saw the visuals of the kind of condition that these buildings are in. You've tried to reach out to various builders, reach out to the authorities. What has been the kind of response that you've got at this point?
Well, since the collapse and the, caving in of the 5 floors at Central's Paradiso, I started doing the groundwork, and then I found out these buildings, those were not in good shape, and that's when I approached also the district administration and the Department of Town and Country Planning. So what I have gathered is that there is some sort of shifting of the blame from one shoulder to another in terms of from the district administration and towards
the DTCP. So what we gathered was that one of the DTCP official told us that there was no government authorized, in any nodal agency to look after the quality of construction while the construction was going on, and also before issuing the occupancy certificate that paved the way for these buyers getting these homes in Gurugram. And that is an eye-opener, because there are thousands of people living in those residential buildings, and how come there is no government department looking after the quality of construction. In my groundwork, I also found out that there is one department of DTCP is writing to another department of DTCP towards the structural audit, that they wanted to do a structural audit of 5 buildings. I want to point out that DTCP, one of the DTCP official has told me that there are as many as 50 buildings that are on their radar in terms of having built with poor quality materials, but they have highlighted 5. Which should be going through a structural audit through IIT Roorkee. However, that letter is dated on 23rd of Feb, and today is 24th of March. There is 1 month gap between that letter and today. And I have been, able to talk to the residents of those 5 societies who are, living through sleepless nights. And they have narrated their audios that they are fearful that the incident that happened at Shintle's Paradiso could happen at their residence as well. And they could well be the, one of those people who get inside those debris of their own building that those were their dream houses. And no structural audit has been carried out in this 1 month. Neither the residents have, got any response from the district administration on to what will happen in the structural audit if the IIT Roorkee report finds that there are some structural problems in their buildings. They will be asked to, evacuate their, homes as the NBCC residents were. So NBCC residents have also complained that they did not get, their money back by now, and neither they got the accommodation. All the promises that NBCC did, as residents are saying, were only on were present only on paper, and they had to scramble through to search their alternative accommodation and other problems. And when I tried to reach out to NBCC, they tried to not to come in front of the camera, and later on they could file just a bare minimum response to the number of questions that Mirror now filed to them. And we asked them, like, what are their plans going ahead, if they have made any policy change in terms of what sort of quality of construction they want to put forward going forward. Because I will again point out that NBCC is a PSU, and it builds a lot of residential buildings, especially in Delhi NCR. So what sort of policy changes they are trying to make, and also have they made any decision in terms of when and how the money of those home buyers will be refunded. And I have got just one sentence reply that the NBCC will be looking into this matter, and they will come on to the conclusion very soon. But the residents are asking how soon that matter will be solved, and how soon they can get their alternative accommodation. So that's the whole state of affairs in terms of the quality of buildings in Gurugram and the fear and plight of home buyers. As you could have heard, that one of the home buyers is saying that I paid 1 crore. So after paying a hefty sum of 1 crore in just a matter of 5 years, if you are going through sleepless nights for the quality of construction, it speaks volume of the shoddy work that was done in terms of construction in Gurugram. Back to you.
Yes, absolutely, Mayank. You've explained that perfectly in terms of the kind of situation that home buyers are in, and the buck is being passed from one person to the other and nobody taking any kind of responsibility. We are going to break this down further. In fact, joining me at this point on the broadcast, Gaurav Prakash, who is a home buyer. He's joining us with some others as well. We also have Anish Agarwal, a lawyer, and Chandrasekhar Prabhu, who's a town planner. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining in. Let me, in fact, start with Gaurav Prakash. Gaurav, if you can tell us your situation at this point in time, what can you tell us?
Right. So we have been complaining about the issues in the project, which are especially life-threatening issues, be it of the structure or even fire. And we have been reaching out to the developer, but there was no hope. And then we reached out to DTP in Gurugram in month of December, where huge number of people signed up a petition that the structural defects needs to be looked into, and we should have some kind of audit. But then there was no response. But in meantime, the unfortunate event of Shintle's Paradiso happened, and then it looked that the system is waking up a bit, Then we again approached the DTP authorities. They visited the site and they assured us that our name will be there in the structural audit. Now, in the first week of March, somewhere around 3rd of March, they had written to IIT Roorkee that that seeking out their help in order to do the structural audit and see the quality of construction for given 5 projects. But then we have no update after that. Like when will this audit start, and when will we be kind of getting the resolution of the same? So till that time, we really do not know how big or how close is the risk. But for sure, what we see from our eyes is very scary, very threatening. Balconies, the plaster falling off, the concrete broken somewhere. And most of the time we are in fear that at least our children play in the park and near the towers if some unfortunate thing should not happen.
Right.
So basically we are living under the threat. That's the bottom line.
Yes, and how many families, how many people are living in the building that you are right now?
So basically we have around 274 total flats, and we are somewhere around 150 families living here. So you can imagine, like, in this small project, if things are falling apart, like in terms of balcony, plaster falling down very frequently, and there is constant seepage in basement, due to which the area near the expansion joint, the iron rods have corroded.
Right.
And that is why we are quite concerned about it.
Right. And if the gentleman sitting next to you would like to come in and say what he has been going through as well.
Yeah, the progress now on part of the government authority is very slow, and that is constantly keeping a threat on us. And the problem is that now residents themselves are afraid of repairing the things which are falling apart, like plaster which is falling apart. We are even not able to do the repair at our own. The reason being, we don't know, maybe in this process we are masking the real problem. So till the time audit is not being done, it is very difficult to even the repair from our own part.
Right, absolutely. Anish Agarwal, if I can come in here and ask you, in this kind of a situation, what is it that buyers can do? Because like we've heard a multitude of voices so far, everybody seems to be completely at a loss of the steps that can be taken.
This problem is an extremely important problem. And sort of resolution is already given in the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act. It provides that the builder, the promoter as such, remains responsible for construction and structural defects for a period of 5 years from the date of handing over. Now, normally when the handing over would happen, the buyers would invariably form a society, which is also required under the laws of various states and the RERA as well. Once that society is formulated, ideally what should be done by the society members, in my view, would be that they should themselves get a structural audit done just to verify that all the structures have been properly erected by the builder. If that is not done, then in effect, there is no second mechanism for ensuring that the builder has really complied with everything.
All right.
That audit would invariably take not more than 2 to 5 months, I believe. Once that audit has been completed, then the home buyers can directly go to the builder and say that, okay, this such and such structural defects have been found, and then the builder will be responsible to either correct those structural defects, or if that is not possible, then to compensate the allottees or the home buyers accordingly. The major problem in this entire situation is the threat to life and safety of the home buyers. And to be very frank, this is something where no insurance can really work. If there is loss of life, that's extremely sad, and I mean, it is irreversible. We all know that. So that's the biggest problem, but there's no resolution to that. Only a criminal case may be lodged, but that doesn't save the person who's gone.
Yes, absolutely. Chandrasekhar Prabhu, coming to you here, this seems to be not a question of one or two buildings. This seems to be a much overarching, a much larger issue, because we are talking about a multitude of buildings, new buildings which are facing this problem. So obviously, the corruption, the red tapeism, all of that which has sort of come to light at this point in time. The fact is that the entire planning, the way this entire planning has happened, the urban planning itself is a complete mess.
It's not really. There are several issues that I would like to touch if you really want to know what is the problem. The problem is very, very simple. It's a systemic failure.
Yes.
Now, when a plan gets approved and a construction is done, it's the responsibility of the governing authority to give the occupation certificate. Now, before giving the occupation certificate, it's the responsibility of the authority which gives the occupation certificate to check whether the quality is there. There is no system anywhere where the person who gives the occupation certificate testifies or certifies or even checks whether the construction is as per the norms or not. That is number one. So when the people come to stay, they have just come because they have been permitted to go in. There is nobody who has certified that the building is good for occupation, structurally sound or solid. Number two, the major thing, whenever we do any kind of building, we get a waterproofing guarantee of up to 20 years, between 10 and 20 years of waterproofing guarantee from the concerned contractor. So it is when the contractor gives us waterproofing guarantee, RERA says we are responsible for rectification only for 5 years. Now, why is that so? A structure of RCC comprising of steel and cement, as this structure is, has an effective lifespan of 60 years, and at least 40 years there should not be any structural defect in it. But RERA says that the builder will only rectify things within the 5 years. Now, when the building is built, the occupation is given. It takes 2 years for the occupation to be given. And then there is just 3 years left. And within 3 years, he says, my responsibility is over because RERA doesn't require him to complete. For a structural structure of a building, his responsibility ought to be there for 30, 40 years because a structure remains for 60 years, at least half that time. If there is a structural defect, there could be a design defect, there could be a material defect, there could be a structural defect, there could be a workmanship defect, there could be a supervision defect, there could be multiple defects in the building, and it needs to be identified. And who would identify that? When a local body or the agency governing construction gives permission to sell the flats or gives permission to occupy the building, somebody has to go there and check whether the building is okay. In the good old days, this checking we used to do by by looking at the building. Now that is no more the case. We have sonography equipments for the building. We have X-rays for the building. So all you got to do is, before permitting the people to come and stay, you have to take some sonographic reports of different parts of the building. You have to take X-ray report, and unless they show that the structure is strong enough to withstand the climatic condition for 40 years, you should not permit the people to go in. You should tell them refund this money unless we certify. But there is no system. It's a systemic failure. The builders are too powerful. They corner the politicians. So there is a nexus between the builder, politician, bureaucacracy and section of the underworld.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
That nexus is so powerful that there is no way in which a common man can combat this nexus, because this nexus is a nexus of corrupt people.
Yes,
and
point
they
taken,
all
Chandrasekhar
stand to
Prabhu. I,
gain.
in fact, want to bring in my colleague Mayank, who's still with us, just on that point. In terms of Mayank, what happens now? Because you've spoken to a host of people, the people who should be held responsible, not got any answers. Basically pushing the can down the lane is what seems to be happening. But from what you've gathered, what is now the road ahead as far as all of these people who are stuck right now? And, if you can just estimatedly tell us how many such buildings are we talking about?
So as you can, point out to the one of the resident who said that there are 270 flats in his residential colony. So as far as the letter that was written by the district town and country planning, one of the officials to another department in the same town and country planning department. So if we estimate by that, so there are more than 50 residential colonies which are, not fundamentally stable in terms of their structures. But 5 of them are, very critical in nature. And that letter clearly states that, after the incident at Chintals Paradiso and the structural problems that these 5 residential societies have. So if even we multiply that by, into 5, we are talking about around 1,000 flats. And that is staggering numbers in terms of, living in a danger zone where people are living and going through fear and tremor that something can happen. Talking about the laws, I would, take it forward from one of the experts that said. So the thing is that the DTCP official said that before this Paradiso incident and before all this chaos that has been, created in Gurugram, because all of them woke up from their slumber after the, caving in of the 5 floors at Chintals Paradiso. So they are saying there was no nodal agency. And that's why, any builder could, construct a building. They could get some guy, who is a fair enough experience in terms of engineering, civil engineering. They could get their certificate, fitness certificate, and they just submit it to the DTCP office and they could get the occupancy certificate. If I may point out here that one of the professor, who gave that fitness certificate to Chintals Paradiso was arrested by CBI for taking a bribe of, I think, 1 lakh rupees. So that speaks volume of, how things are working in order. And there is no nodal agency, as one of our experts also suggested, that there is no government department, who goes there. There are no officials who are going to those buildings of which they are issuing occupancy certificates. So there lies the problem, that there is no, there is a saying that the Sarkar sees everything. But there is no one to see the quality of construction in those buildings.
Yes.
So that is the underlying point. Talking about what is the way forward. So DTCP has said that as soon as IIT Roorkee conducts a structural audit, and if they will find that these residential, especially the 5 that I'm talking about, if they will find these 5 completely, unsafe to live, as was the case with the NBCC Greenview, the residents will be asked to, evacuate their flats, and then there will be the demands of refund at market rate will be raised, as the district commissioner has assured me that he has said that this is the process, this is the way this case will be, taken forward, that if structural audit finds that these residential societies are unsafe to live, people will be, asked to evacuate, and then their demands of refund at market rate with terms of the price today, it will be monitored, and they will be, that will be the way forward out of this chaos that has been created in Gurugram.
Absolutely. Gaurav, coming back to you is, given the kind of lengthy process that it seems in terms of, what next, going to court, taking the legal route, is that something that you, along with the others who are, in the same boat as you, would be considering?
So just before asking that question, I'll just like to add. So the systematic, some senior gentlemen said this is a systematic failure. It for sure is, because whenever there is a fault or an intentional, problem created by builder, that they don't fix up things, they charge extra for things which are not, they should not charge for. They say, okay, go to court, you will spend your life there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to government authorities, they will not respond to you.
Yeah.
So it looks like there is no respite, there is no given clear path or trustable path which you can follow for any kind of resolution.
Yes.
I'm already in NCDRC for some other similar things, so it is a bit different. But my case is running for since 5 years.
Yes.
We get dates which are 1 year after the other. So now, but for sure, since RERA is there and it is in Gurugram only, we plan to move ahead on that path because I don't think there is any other way to fix these issues, because builder needs to be told that by credible institutions like court that you have done these wrongs and you have to fix this.
Yes, absolutely. Point taken, Gaurav. Let me just, in fact, go across to Anish here. Anish, if you had to give, advice to home buyers such as Gaurav and others who we've also heard in this now, next steps and what can be done. The process, of course, is going to be time-consuming, but nonetheless, what would be the advice for them?
So they certainly have to claim compensation, etc., from the builders because they ultimately have lost their residence and flats. Under RERA, there is a clear provision that within 5 years, if there is a structural defect which is found, it appears. I mean, I've not tested the building, but it appears that there must have been a structural defect. Therefore, in that scenario, the home buyers can certainly approach RERA authority, and then compensation should accordingly be awarded by the relevant authority. Now, over here, we have discussed something about how no governmental authority is responsible. We have to take note of the fact that there is an entire mechanism for approving buildings and overseeing their occupation worthiness. However, in case some governmental agency is not able to conduct some relevant test, and gives a certificate without ensuring that the building is worthy of residence, then it will be extremely difficult to make public money accountable for the loss of residence, or if any bad thing happens, because at the end of the day, it's taxpayers' money. So how can the public be made responsible for that? In that light, I would say that generally, these home buyers who have lost their homes, this is a separate situation where they obviously have to approach relevant authorities for compensation. But others who are not in this situation and who actually have their flats right now, they, through their relevant RWS, should conduct the relevant structural audits internally. All the societies are extremely, well off, and the structural audit, I believe the cost would not be prohibitive. And once they get that info, then they can start claiming compensation, etc., from the builder, because once the time is gone, it's gone.
Fair point, Anish Agarwal. But Chandrasekhar Prabhu, just to take that point forward, this, of course, people who are already in this boat now have to deal with it going forward. But before a person goes out and makes a purchase like this, what are the things that one can actually do to make sure that, what you're purchasing, you are aware of it, you're aware of the construction, the quality? Is the only solution then to carry out your own, get somebody and carry out the audit, structural audit on your own? Is that even an option?
Yeah. First of all, the laws are grossly inadequate. In these buildings, I know that most of them have just about completed 5 years. By the time the IIT Roorkee will come and do the thing, the 5 years would have been gone. And under RERA laws, that fellow will say that 5 years is over, so I'm not now responsible. So then these people will have to go all the way to court and explain to them that despite 5 years, for a structure of a building, it's RCC, damn it, we are not making some cardboard houses for 5 years. RCC remains for 60 years. At least for 30 years, the structure has to be stable. If within the first 10 years or 15 years, if structure is unstable, then the person who's making it has jolly well defaulted. How can RERA be so callous about the whole thing and say within 5 years, this is not a mixer grinder that you buy, or this is not equipment that you buy which you give a 5-year warranty for a washing machine or something. This is a house which is supposed to last for 60 or 80 years and structurally stable for that time. So how can 5 years rectification be there? 5 years should be for waterproofing or for minor things like plaster and other things. But for structural, this thing, a building has to be structurally sound for 30 years. Nothing should happen to a building, even if it is made of reasonable quality. I'm not talking of superior quality, good quality, excellent quality. Even if it is made of reasonable quality, decently reasonable steel and some good cement properly mixed, then for 30 years, nothing should be happening. So if this is happening, it means if it is happening in 5 years' time, it obviously means that something is drastically wrong, and also the laws are wrong. See, RERA only safeguards against the person who has invested. If he has not got the flat, then you will get his refund. But after he has got the flat, if he feels cheated, then RERA is very sketchy about it, and 5 years is no good. When I give contracts or we make designs and do it in the private sector, our contractor gives us 20 years waterproofing guarantee.
Right.
And a contractor like Larsen and Toubro gives us 35 years, 40 years structural guarantee. When the contractor is willing to give guarantee, why doesn't the law provide for it that in 10 years, within 10 years, if the complaints come, then it should not be a question of how much time. It is a question of who is to blame.
Yes.
And if someone is to blame, it should not matter whether it is 4 years or 6 years or 7 years. If somebody has not done his job well, then the buyer and the resident should not suffer.
Yes,
that is
absolutely.
how the law should be made.
Yes, absolutely. Point taken, Mr. Prabhu. But, Anish, coming back to you on this issue of RERA, because when it came into force, it was, thought to be something that will completely help change the face of how real estate is, transactions are dealt with, how home buyers' woes are dealt with. But there seem to be a lot of issues and a lot of things that perhaps do need to change in RERA itself. I wanted your view on that.
So I needed to clarify a couple of things. One is that the 5-year period doesn't commence from the date of the OC, but when the possession is actually given.
Okay.
So that concept of 2 years already having elapsed and 3 years remaining, that all doesn't work. The other points raised by Mr. Prabhu are completely valid. I mean, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, from a home buyer's perspective, I mean, I would not want to lose my house even after 20 years, even after 30 years. So, I mean, that number can be anything, and I'm not really debating on what that number should be. The point is that the law eventually protects only those who are vigilant. So, I mean, it can be, one may start a movement and say that, okay, you change that 5 to 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever the number is. But at the end of the day, a home buyer has to see what the current law is and act in accordance with the laws so as to best protect his interests. Otherwise, there is no point of saying that, okay, the law should have been this or that should have been that. All that discussion can obviously happen.
Yes.
We need to act in light
here.
of what the current situation.
I have gone before the RERA in innumerable cases. What the builder does is, once he builds, he immediately shows that it has been sold to X. And when the real buyer comes, he shows after 2 years that it has been sold to Y. So then this doesn't become the first buyer. And in most cases, the RERA holds that 5 years have passed. I can give you innumerable cases. We have gone to the High Court against those cases. If I remember well, I have about 120 cases. We have a team of lawyers which is helping people from doing it. And in most cases, when they go with complaint, the builder says, this particular person may have taken possession 3 years ago, but I have built it earlier, and earlier I had sold it to an ex-person.
Right.
And then his share, this one has taken, so my 5 years is over.
Fair
That
enough,
is
yes.
what in most cases is done.
All
so
right.
we have seen in RERA, there is a lot of issues on that. I have personally faced these RERA cases.
All right. All right, I'm afraid we're completely out of time, but this is an issue that we will continue to keep taking up because it requires a lot of discussion, and as well as the fact that so many home buyers are stuck in the lurch. So obviously things need to be done and people need to be held accountable. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining in.
Gurugram sky-high walls, hundreds of unsafe buildings.